You don't suffer because you're unlovable. You suffer because you believe that love would fix what's broken inside of you. From the time we're children, we're told that love is the answer, that it saves, that it completes, that it redeems. So you wait, you dream, you search. And when you finally feel it, the rush, the attachment, the validation, you hold on to it like a life raft in a storm. Because for a brief moment, someone sees you, hears you, and you believe that maybe you were never broken after all. But then something happens. They pull away, or they get too close, or you start seeing sides of them that don't match the fantasy you built. And slowly, the thing that once made you feel whole now starts to tear you apart. Not because they were cruel, not because you're weak, but because you misunderstood what love really is. This pain you carry, this ache in your chest when they don't text back, when they don't feel the same way, when they stop showing up. It's not proof that you love deeply. It's proof that you attach blindly. You suffer not because you don't deserve love. You suffer because you never learned its language, only its myths. And so this video is not here to romanticize your suffering. It's here to explain it, so that you never confuse infatuation with intimacy again, so that you stop calling your wounds a form of devotion. Let's begin. Love is not what you think it is. And that's the beginning of almost every heartbreak you've ever lived through. Because if you were honest, truly honest, you'd admit that most of what you call love is actually a mirror you've been staring into, hoping to finally see a version of yourself that feels worthy. You don't chase love, you chase validation. You chase the echo of your name in someone else's voice because you don't yet know how to say it gently to yourself. From the very beginning, you were sold a story that love would save you. It would rescue you from loneliness, from inadequacy, from the aching emptiness you don't talk about at night. You were told love would be the answer, that someone would come along and suddenly the chaos in your mind would quiet, and the wound in your heart would close. But love doesn't do that. It's not a remedy. It's not a bandage for your soul. And when you try to use it like one, it breaks. People break. You break. You thought the dizzying excitement was love, the text that made your heart stop, the I miss you that rewired your brain. You thought the jealousy meant depth. You thought the arguments meant passion. You mistook emotional turbulence for emotional connection. But that's not love. That's insecurity magnified. That's a nervous system addicted to familiar chaos. That's a childhood wound wearing perfume and pretending to be destiny. Because no one ever told you that love isn't a performance. It's not something you earn. It doesn't arrive when you become thinner, more successful, less emotional, more agreeable. Real love doesn't require you to shrink, but you learn to perform. You learn to read their moods before your own. You learn to silence your truth if it risked their affection. You learn that losing yourself was the price of being chosen. And every time you did that, you called it love, even when it made you smaller, even when it made you sick, because attention felt like affection, and being needed felt like being loved. But love is not a transaction. It's not built on fear or sacrifice or walking on eggshells. Love is built on safety, and safety is quiet. It doesn't shake your world. It steadies it. But that's the part no one tells you. They don't tell you that love should feel boring sometimes. They don't tell you that safety feels foreign when all you've ever known is survival. So you run from the ones who are consistent. You get the ick when someone treats you with kindness. And you fall headfirst for the ones who make you feel uncertain. Because uncertainty is familiar. You fall for what you know, not what you need. So love, real love, becomes invisible to you. You overlook the ones who would walk through fire just to keep your heart safe, and you chase the ones who hand you the matches. But here's the truth that will save you. Love is not supposed to feel like a rescue mission. It's not supposed to feel like you're chasing, proving, fixing, or begging. It's supposed to feel like ease, like home, like you can finally exhale. Love is not the storm, it's the shelter. But if all you've ever known is lightning and thunder, calm skies will feel unnatural. You'll mistake peace for boredom. You'll call softness weakness. You'll reject the very thing you say you want. Not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. And until you recognize that, until you understand that your concept of love has been built on unhealed pain, you'll keep choosing people who replicate it. You don't suffer because you love too deeply. You suffer because you don't know what healthy love actually looks like. And until you learn, you will keep confusing adrenaline with intimacy. You will keep calling chaos a soulmate, and you will keep writing tragedy and calling it romance. But if you stop, if you pause, if you look back at every heartbreak and trace the thread, you will see it. A pattern, a loop, a cycle that always ends the same way. The first step out of suffering is not loving someone else better. It's learning to love differently, to rebuild your definition from the ground up, to walk away not just from people who hurt you, but from the belief that love is supposed to hurt, because love, real love, doesn't demand your suffering. It demands your presence, and it begins when you finally show up for yourself. You think you're falling in love, but what you're really doing is replaying a pattern. Love doesn't always start with a spark. Sometimes it starts with a wound, one so familiar that it feels like fate. You meet someone, and it feels like you've known them forever. But what you've known is the feeling of being unseen. What feels like recognition is your trauma whispering, "We've been here before," because you're not drawn to people by accident. You're drawn to what reflects the love you were taught to chase, not the love you actually need. You confuse tension with chemistry. You confuse inconsistency with mystery. You confuse emotional neglect with the thrill of pursuit. You fall for the person who gives you just enough to stay, but never enough to feel safe. Because deep down, you were conditioned to believe that love must be earned, that if you prove yourself worthy, they'll stay, that if you're good enough, quiet enough, useful enough, they won't leave like the ones who did before. So you chase, you explain, you overfunction. You become everything they need and nothing that you are. And when they pull away, it confirms the belief you've been rehearsing since childhood. I'm not lovable unless I perform, unless I heal them, fix them, save them, sacrifice for them. But that's not love. That's reenactment. It's your inner child trying to win the affection they never got in an adult relationship that was never meant to carry that weight. The reason you fall so hard for the unavailable one is because somewhere, deep in your subconscious, you believe that if you can just make this one person stay, it will undo the pain of everyone who didn't. But it never does, and it never will. Because what you needed back then was love without conditions. What you need now is to stop rewriting the same story with different faces. Because if you don't recognize the pattern, you'll call it destiny. You'll call it a soulmate. You'll call it meant to be, even when it's slowly destroying you. Sometimes we call people special simply because they make us feel the same pain we've always known, just in a prettier disguise. So ask yourself, is this love or is it a loop? Am I falling for them, or am I falling into the comfort of my suffering? Because real love doesn't hijack your nervous system. It doesn't trigger your abandonment issues every other day. It doesn't feel like a test you can't pass or a riddle you're too broken to solve. Real love is not a reenactment. It's a release. It doesn't replay your childhood. It heals it. It doesn't re-traumatize you. It teaches you that safety exists, even in closeness. It doesn't make you question your worth. It reminds you of it, especially when you're messy, uncertain, imperfect. But to get there, you have to break the pattern. You have to be brave enough to walk away from the story that's familiar, but not fulfilling. You have to stop calling emotional pain a sign of emotional depth. You have to stop choosing people who fit your wounds better than your dreams, because the longer you stay in these cycles, the more you lose parts of yourself. Not all at once, slowly, quietly. You stop laughing the same. You stop hoping the same. You stop believing that love can be easy because you've never let it be. But it can be, and it will be. The moment you choose to fall into truth instead of patterns, into peace instead of chaos, into a love that meets you with clarity, not confusion. Because love isn't supposed to feel like you're constantly chasing someone who's already halfway out the door. It's supposed to feel like coming home to them and to yourself. You thought they loved you the way you loved them. You thought the warmth in their voice, the laughter, the shared nights, the soft confessions at 2 a.m. meant you had something mutual, something sacred. But what you had was something shared, not something equal. There's a difference, because just because someone enjoys you doesn't mean they're invested in you. Just because someone accepts your love doesn't mean they're capable of returning it. But no one told you that. No one told you that feelings can be real and still be one-sided, that chemistry doesn't require commitment, that a connection can be strong and still be temporary. And so you love with both hands open, thinking they were reaching back. But they weren't. They were simply taking what you gave: warmth, attention, safety, understanding, without ever offering the same in return. Not because they were evil, not always because they meant to hurt you, but because you were convenient, because being adored felt good, even if they couldn't give it back. And you made excuses for their silence. You read between the lines of their mixed signals. You clung to crumbs and called it a meal because you needed to believe that what you felt was real, that all this intensity had a purpose, that the universe wouldn't be so cruel as to let you love someone who couldn't love you back. But the universe is not cruel. It's honest. It gives you reflections, not answers, just mirrors. And the truth is, you weren't in a relationship. You were in a projection. You were building castles in your head while they were simply walking through your life like a tourist, passing through, enjoying the view, never intending to stay. And still you stayed, because hope is addictive, because the version of them that lived in your imagination was so beautiful, so perfect, you couldn't let go of what they could be, even if it never matched who they were. You weren't in love with them. You were in love with potential, with what you believed love could become, if only they changed, if only they healed, if only they saw you the way you saw them. But here's the truth that burns. You should never have to teach someone how to love you. You should never have to earn what should be freely given. And you should never mistake mutual time for mutual care, because time can be shared without intention. Affection can be offered without depth. And some people will say the right words only because they like how you make them feel, not because they care about how you feel. The illusion of mutuality is the most dangerous lie because it makes you question your instincts. It makes you doubt your standards. It turns your self-respect into guilt because how dare you want more than almost love? How dare you walk away from someone who was trying, but trying isn't enough? Effort without clarity is confusion. Presence without commitment is emotional theft. And your heart? It deserves more than being someone's emotional placeholder. It deserves to be chosen. Not when it's convenient, not when they're lonely, but always. So the next time you feel yourself slipping into something that looks like love, ask yourself this: are they meeting me at the same depth I'm meeting them? Or am I the only one treading water while they drift? Because love cannot survive in imbalance. It doesn't thrive in half commitments. It doesn't grow in shadows. And if you have to constantly wonder how they feel, if you have to constantly earn your place, if the love feels lopsided, but you're too afraid to admit it, then what you have is not love. It's an illusion. And illusions only last until the pain becomes louder than the hope. So break the illusion. Mourn it, yes, but walk away from it. Because real love is not an unanswered question. It is not a guessing game. It is not a maybe. It is a choice. It is consistent. It is clear. And it meets you fully, willingly, entirely, where you already are. You keep getting hurt not because love is cruel, but because you keep trying to build it without a foundation. And that foundation isn't your partner. It's not timing. It's not even chemistry. It's you, your understanding of yourself, your wounds, your needs, your limits, the truths you hide from others, and the ones you hide from yourself. Because when you don't understand who you are, love becomes a mask. You wear it to feel whole, to feel needed, to distract yourself from the loneliness that comes not from being alone, but from being unknown. You go into love hoping it will tell you who you are, hoping someone else's admiration will become your mirror. But love isn't a cure for identity. It isn't a substitute for healing. It's an amplifier. And if you don't know yourself, love will only magnify the confusion. You will mistake attraction for fate. You will collapse your needs into theirs and call it compromise. You will feel abandoned every time they choose themselves, not because they betrayed you, but because you never learned how to stand on your own. You cannot merge with someone else without first meeting yourself. Without that meeting, every relationship becomes an escape, not a home, an exit, a distraction from the work you haven't done, a place to hide your unworthiness behind the glow of their attention. But here's what no one teaches you. You bring your entire psychological world into love. Your fears, your unresolved grief, the stories you wrote as a child about what it means to be wanted and what it means to be left. And so when they say, I love you, you don't hear love. You hear proof that you're safe and that safety becomes your addiction. And when they pull back or grow distant or need space, it doesn't just hurt, it shatters you. Not because they did something terrible, but because your identity was built inside their attention. That's why it feels like you're dying. That's why it hurts more than it should, because the relationship wasn't just about connection. It was about survival. And when they leave, you don't just lose them, you lose yourself. But that only happens when you skip the first step, the step of turning inward, the step of sitting in your solitude long enough to ask, who am I when no one is watching me? What do I want? Not just in a partner, but in a life. What wounds am I still carrying into every interaction, hoping someone else will heal them for me? You need to know what love means to you before you give it. You need to understand what you're asking for. because otherwise you'll keep expecting others to fill what only you can repair. If you don't understand your triggers, you'll mistake caring questions for criticism. If you don't understand your patterns, you'll sabotage peace and chase drama. If you don't understand your values, you'll say yes to anyone who makes you feel seen, even if they don't align with the life you want to build. Loving without self-awareness is like giving someone a broken compass and asking them to lead you home. They won't get you there. They can't get you there because that journey was always yours. You think love will save you, but real love requires you to be saved already. Not perfect, not healed entirely, but at least willing to see yourself clearly. Because when you finally understand yourself, when you meet the parts of you that you once hid, you stop asking love to complete you. You ask it to meet you, not to rescue, not to rewrite, but to walk beside you with honesty, with depth, with equal weight. And that is where love becomes something beautiful, something safe, something freeing. Not because they fixed you, but because you no longer needed them to. You suffer not because you're broken, but because no one ever taught you what love actually is. You thought it was supposed to hurt. That missing someone, obsessing over them, needing them to feel whole, was proof it was real. But that wasn't love. That was fear dressed up as connection. And now you know. You've spent years calling chaos passion. You've mistaken being needed for being loved. You've made yourself smaller just to be kept. But the truth is, real love doesn't ask you to abandon yourself. It doesn't demand silence, sacrifice, or suffering. It meets you in your wholeness, not your wounds. And once you see that, once you understand it, you'll stop chasing people who trigger your pain and start choosing the ones who bring you peace. Because love that requires you to lose yourself isn't love, it's a lesson. And the moment you finally learn it, you'll never settle for confusion, inconsistency, or emotional starvation again. You'll stop suffering, not because love changed, but because you did.